Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to my channel, and today in this video I am going to show you what Franken PHP is and how this modern PHP app server has some very interesting features which can really help us deploy our app in production and also in our normal development flow. Before we dive into the code, let's understand what Franken PHP is. Well, Franken PHP, as I said, is an app server which is written in Go. It uses caddy as the behind the scenes to run our application, any PHP application. Okay, and these are some of the features. So if we look at it, it says that uses the official PHP executor embedded in a state-of-art web server caddy. It supports HTTP 1.1, 2, and 3. It also generates our HTTPS certificates automatically using Let's Encrypt or 0SSL. So you don't need to worry about the renewals and stuff. And that is quite useful. And I have seen that we can even have a local development certificate or something that we call a self-signed certificate, which also helps us in having a HTTPS certificate on our application when we are doing the development. And it is very simple. As this line says, we just need to copy our PHP files into the document root, and that's about it. Everything will just work. But now comes the best part. At least that's what I have felt about this, which is Franken PHP allows us to create a standalone self-executable and dependency-free binary of our PHP application. So the question is, what is a self-executable dependency-free binary and what is the advantage? Well, if you are coming from the world of .NET or Java, then you will already know that those applications compile into a final build file. Okay, whereas in any typical PHP application, like whether it is WordPress based website or a Laravel based application, the application runs on runtime, right? And the files are executed when the requests are coming in. So there is no compiled version, which means when we are shipping our code, the actual code is getting shipped. And when we are running our code on production, the actual code is sitting there. We need PHP, we need a server like Apache or Nginx, stuff like that, right? But what Franken PHP does is it allows us to create one binary file, which is self-executable, and it has everything in it which is required for the PHP application to run. And the big advantage of this approach is that on production, we don't need to install PHP, we don't need to install Apache, we don't need to do a lot of stuff around extensions and stuff like that, which we would need for a PHP application to run. Rather, in production, what we need is a Docker binary, because obviously we will run a Docker container, and we just need the executable file. And that's where I got really interested and I thought I should definitely share this video. So with this understanding, let's get started and see how this can be done. Just so that we are on the same page, what I will do is first create a simple Laravel application using Composer Create, and I will create one route so that we are able to ensure that routing also works. All right, I have a new Laravel clean installation. Let me go inside it. And typically, if I want to run my Laravel application, I can do something like PHP serve, or rather PHP artisan serve. With this command, ideally, my application should be running on localhost port 8000, and I can see that is the case. Now, let's quickly add one simple web API, which will just return a string. So as you can see, I just created a simple route, and when I'm going to that particular route, I see this message being displayed. So our application right now has two web routes, and now what we are trying to do is run our application using Franken PHP. Now, although I will show you in details how to do that, but I would want you to know how to find your way around if you are stuck. So there's the documentation, and what I am going to do is go through this guide where this getting started. What this does is run our application on localhost port 443, right? And it basically takes whatever is there in my current application. So I'll just copy this. I'll make a few changes. Our code base is the current code base, so I don't want it to be inside the public folder. I'll rather have it over here. It is exposing port 80 and 443. You may choose to disable any one of them if you want to. I'll just keep it like this, and with this in place, if I go over here, paste it, and I'll just let you know that I already have a few images, including the Franken PHP Docker image. So it won't take time, but when you are doing it for the first time, it might take some time to download the image, which is about 540 MB. So let's hit enter. Oh, my bad. I will also stop the port 8000 where the application was served. So now if I go over here, this doesn't work. Whereas if I copy this and move away from the port and directly go to localhost welcome, it shows an HTTPS warning, but if I ignore it, I can see my welcome route. The error is coming because this is a self-signed certificate. So Chrome will typically complain, rather not only Chrome, most probably Safari and Firefox will also complain about that, but we can ignore it right now. And yeah, so this is the bare minimum which we can do with Franken PHP, because it just took us one simple command to run our application. Okay, but now this is not much in terms of what we would want to do on production, right? This is not the way we would like our code to run on production, because right now what I have is basically pushing the entire current directory. $PW means current working directory, right? So I'm basically pushing my entire working directory into the apps folder, and then Franken PHP is running it from that particular folder. So if I go to Docker, the container that I'm running, okay, and if I go to the terminal, I'll see that there is a PHP version installed, 8.3.0, which is right now the latest stable version, but it doesn't have Composer installed in it. Yes, it doesn't find Composer, so it can run the application, but maybe if you want to do some package additions and stuff like that, you will have to do it in a different way, because this image is primarily to run a PHP application. It doesn't have all the softwares. Okay, so then the question is, how do we build the binary? Because what we have achieved so far is something which we can do with any other Docker image as well. For example, there is the Bitnami instances, there is the official Laravel Docker image as well, using Sail, that you can run it. So what's the difference? Well, the building of the binary is something which we will look at right now. Again, I would say that there are documentation available, create standalone self-executable PHP thing, which you can refer to, but I have a simplified version which I would like to show you. I mean, this is one of the way to do it, but yeah, the way which I'm showing you is a little simpler, I would say, and it also helps you to create the binary in a build process, a multiple Docker build process, which is useful if you are trying to do a CI/CD. Okay, so the first step is obviously I'll create a Docker file and let me copy some code. All right, so now we have our basic code in place. Let's understand line by line what is happening over here. So on the first line, I have the platform definition because I am going to build the binary on a Mac, and if I don't add this, it will kind of create it from in a way where it may not run on a Linux machine. Okay, so I'm basically saying that the binary which I'm trying to build is for a platform which is Linux AMD 64. So sorry, not the binary, but the image that we are trying to bring in is for the platform, and we are naming it as builder. This is the convention when we have multiple stages in our build process. Now, we are setting a working directory which is /go source app dist app. Now you can have many ways to do it, but yeah, I mean, this is one folder which I saw in the documentation that can be used. Now, this particular image does have composer. Okay, it's a big one. I even have a tweet where I was asking people if really this image needs to be so big. So yeah, static app. This is what I'm talking about initially. I mean, it's a very, this image is getting updates pretty frequently. When I tweeted, it was about 7.1 GB of image, but right now it is about 6.47. So maybe they have done something. I'm not sure if the entire file size is required. If I'm pulling something which is way too big, I don't know. I'll figure it out. But maybe because I'm building through a different operating system, it needs certain kinds of things. But yeah, this is for the build only. So the only good thing about it is that we don't need it in production. Our server doesn't need to have a 6.47 GB Docker image. Okay. So we pull that in, set our working directory, and then what we do is copy dot to dot, which basically means copy everything from here and copy it inside the working directory. Now, the next command over here is for the build process, which does a composer install, ignore platform requirements, and this is specifically required because the extensions that I'm installing is in a later stage. Okay, and I couldn't get this to be done before the composer install because this needs to run, and this particular build static.sh depends on certain things over here. So I'm first doing a composer install. It's a no dev. Okay, and once the composer binaries or the composer packages are installed, after that we go to our new working directory, which is still here, and then we run embed this, which is part of the documentation, and this is where we are defining what are the different PHP extensions that our application needs. Now, one thing to note is if you specify certain extensions, then only those extensions will be installed. But if you're not sure, you can get rid of it, and all the extensions which Franken PHP now has compatibility with or it supports, it will install them. Okay. And with this, line 12 is basically where our build will start. Okay. So we pull that image, we set our working directory, we copy our source code inside the image, we run composer install. Right now I have vendor folder because I created the app, but if you understand, in a CI/CD process inside the deployment pipeline, you will not have the vendor folder. So you will have to bring in the vendor folder, download all the packages, and then install the extensions and then start building the binary. Once the binary is ready for us, what I'm doing is taking an Alpine 3.19.0 image. It's an Ubuntu image, very small one. I think I will be able to show you Ubuntu. Okay, I think it will come in when I run it. There is the Ubuntu instance, which is 69, but I think the Alpine is even smaller. Okay, and it does work. So on the Alpine Docker image, we set our working directory to /app. Then this is important. We copy from builder. And if you remember, we had named this particular stage as builder. So we are copying from builder this Franken PHP Linux 8664 file, which is nothing but a file that this build static sh file will generate, which is our standalone binary file. We name it as Laravel app. We expose port 80 and we execute a command, which is Laravel app. We execute the binary and we run PHP server. So a lot of talking has been done. Let's execute it and see what happens. So I'm executing docker build /t, and this is the name, and I'm going to take the current Docker file. So everything is fine. I just hit enter. So this particular item, it looks like it is going to take some time. They may have created a new Docker image, so I'll wait for it. And with the power of editing, I will jump to the section where the image is built. All right, so finally everything is ready for us. It took me a couple of retries because my internet connection was a bit flaky and it was breaking up. But then I was able to get it to work. And now, if you see, my Docker situation is like this. This is a dangling image because this is the 6.28 GB Docker image that is used to build our binary. And this is the final thing. And as I said, once you have the image downloaded, right, it's a pretty quick process. If I run this thing again, which will build the entire thing, if you see, this is the only part, right? It is quite quick. Okay, everything is ready because it is able to understand that everything is kind of ready. Sometimes it may take a little bit of time to do a composer install. Now I have my image ready. If I want to run it, I'll just show you through the GUI. I point it to maybe 8000. So my 8000 port is mapped to the port of 80 of that container. Now if I go to this place, let me do localhost 8000, and I'm able to load the Laravel application. And if I do welcome, it is also doing that. It is showing me the route that we had created, and you can see I am not serving it. Okay, it is through a different port. Sorry, a different thing. The container is running on port 8000 on my machine. Okay, and this container has certain things. If you look at our code, I'll show you. My working directory is this, and I'm copying the Laravel app binary to that folder. So inside my working directory, ls, I can see I have a binary. So if I do something like this, I will see I have all these commands available. However, I don't have PHP on my machine. Okay, this is a clean Ubuntu server. You can see this is what I'm using to run my Docker container. Okay, and one thing which you should know is if you are trying to run the application manually, you can use basically this PHP server, and it will run on a particular port. And if you want to execute certain artisan commands, then what you need to do is do Laravel app, and then you have something called as php-cli. So I'll do php CLI, and then with this I can run artisan, and so it gives me all the commands which are available. So if you want to do view cache clear or migrate, stuff like that, you can use that function to run those commands. So that's about it, guys. That's what I wanted to show you with Franken PHP. If you like this video, click the thumbs up icon. And yeah, if you have watched so far, then I would definitely request you to click on the subscribe button as well.